Hey, Jeff Fuller back with you. Thanks for tuning in. Jay Fuller Live. Actually, it's Jay Fuller Interviews. I need to know my own name on Instagram and Twitter, YouTube as well. Jay Fuller Interviews. We have a special guest this afternoon. This is Eric Berry. Eric, welcome in.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks, Jeff. You can
And
take
so I
that
see,
score. You can take that score off from behind you there if you want.
I know. I apologize. I was trying to find a good picture, but I'll try to block that score. Um, with your jacket, Linden Institute, what are your thoughts during this COVID-19 quarantine, especially regarding students in athletics?
Well, that's the first and foremost thought for me. I worry about how the kids are doing mentally. I mean, this is such a grind. I have a son that's 15 years old that hasn't been able to play baseball this spring. So that's certainly been difficult. My daughter's 19. She's in the house and they're doing all this online homework, and that's been a grind itself. And just to be away from athletics and be away from the kids, it's just been so tough.
And now, obviously, you beat Harwood this year in the regular season, and I know you're friends with Coach Tommy Young at Harwood, and them not being able to play in the championship game. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I mean, I felt so bad for Tommy and all the kids at Harwood who worked so hard. Um, Kudos, respect to the entire program, yourself included, to build it back up from where it was and where it is now. I've nothing but respect for everyone there. I've never seen anything like that. It's sad on so many levels. I mean, even if you get to the state championship and lose, and I'm not saying Harwood would have lost or Fairhaven would have lost, it's one of those days you never forget. You
Yeah.
got to the state championship, and they made it there in the bracket, and then of course co-champions, but certainly doesn't feel the same not to be able to compete for it. But you, unprecedented times, I guess.
Yeah, and just being at the there's nothing like it. I just know for myself as an assistant coach, just being on the bench for that semifinal game was remarkable. I do want to talk to you about when you beat Harwood. Some said that you out-coached Tommy. How
Oh
does
my
that
God.
compliment? How does that make you feel? And what was your game plan going in? As our record was certainly favorable, but you certainly had your girls ready.
Players win basketball games. Coaches act like they win basketball games. I don't know. Nobody outcoached anybody that game. We made shots. I mean, I think it was, is it Brett that came over to me after the game?
Yeah,
Uh,
Brett Hill.
Brett Hill came over and said, "You guys always shoot like that." I think we hit 9 threes that game against your zone defense, and we were prepared. And it's how basketball is. I mean, I think Harwood was 7-0. I believe we were 2-5 at the time, or somewhere along those lines. Um, we had all the incentive in the world to go in there and win the game, and very easily to get overlooked. It happens to everybody. It's happened. I've been on the other side of the equation. So we were just on a roll that night, and we hit some free throws. Point guard Lindsay Joyle played very well. And when she plays like that, makes it tough for us to beat. Caden Whitcomb hit 6 threes. So, and as Tommy will tell you, it seemed like everyone was a step further out.
Yeah, it was. Hey, so I don't mean to look like a thug with my hood up. We just do not have this section of the house heated, and with the snow outside, it's just kind of chilly today. But hey, being in the Northeast Kingdom, being elected the athletic director and activities director for Linden Institute, what does that mean for you personally to come back to the program, but in this new venture?
I love it. I wanted to come back to Linden Institute to do whatever I can from a business perspective. I've been, of course, a businessman for a long time and wanted to implement some new ideas with the school, and get involved with developing the school as well. We got some ideas that we like to put forth in terms of facilities improvement and just overall improvement of athletics in general. But that's why I kind of want to come back on board. It's been more gratifying than I actually thought it would be. I was excited about it. but then to develop the relationships with all of the student athletes, not just basketball players, has been really special. And to have it knocked off the way it, March 13th on, basically, I haven't seen anybody, so it's depressing.
Now, when the title says athletics and activities director, what is included in the activities? Is that club teams or is that something different?
That's all kinds of clubs that go on at school, Jeff. There could be, we have a skeet shooting club. We have a number of things that go on, outing club, where they call them the dirt bags. Dirt bags go on hikes. They might go on a long trail, different things like that. There's gaming clubs. There's all kinds of other clubs. A lot of them, about 25 to be exact. So.
And could you just talk a little bit about the venture you've had for some time, nsnsports.net, and what was that like to get started? And just really to see kids featured that parents and grandparents from afar can watch.
Well, when we first started NSN, it was more of a online editorial type website with digital photos. We had the color photos. At that time, about 10 or 11 years ago, papers were still black and white for the most part. So, the web experience, people getting online was becoming more evident. And so we had the color photos. And then I said, why don't we start video streaming some of these games? And everyone said, you're crazy. We can't do it. We're in the Northeast Kingdom. And as soon as they told me you can't do it, I was like, okay, well, I'll take that as a challenge. We're going to do it, so that's what we did. And it's taken a lot of hard work. I've got a great business partner in Ryan McDonald, and we've had an awesome staff to be able to develop it, and I don't know where you're transitioning to, what the next segue is, but most of those people that have helped us build that company came from Linden State College or Northern Vermont University. So.
Well, that's a great transition because of all the question marks in this, quote, unprecedented time might lead to some changes. I know you've been very vocal about that. Could you just talk about your thoughts with the possibility of these colleges closing?
Well, first of all, I was glad to see the announcement come out today that they're going to rescind the proposal that's on the table. So that's good news coming from the Board of Trustees. They're going to try to figure out a way to get bridge funding from the legislature and move things forward. I just hope that the damage is not irreparable. You know what I'm trying to say? Irreparable or irreparable. That's what it is. I'm supposed to be in broadcast at one time. Been out of the loop for a while. But, I hope the damage isn't so much that enrollment is very widely affected across the VTC and NVU Lyndon Johnson campuses. So hopefully they can overcome that. But I'm glad that the governor stepped up. Proud of the governor for doing that. I'm proud of our local legislators for coming forth and creating some sort of bill to get on the floor to create bridge funding. The economic impact it would have had for NVU Johnson, Lyndon, or VTC to go away, I mean, just absolutely crazy. I mean, yeah, you're wearing, I think you got a Harwood jacket on there, right, Jeff? I mean,
yes, I do.
You guys from Waterbury, it doesn't matter. All the towns around would have been affected by a closure of VTC. So,
yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I lived in Johnson for a couple years, and I know what that college meant to that town, just being a small town in Vermont. Could you just talk a little bit too about, my son is a senior in high school at Harwood, and just looking at what this might mean for the fall for enrollment. And I know you have a daughter in college and school. How do you think this fall is going to affect college students?
Well, I think it's, in terms of because of the COVID-19 crisis, or well, it's still up in the air. Will they even go back to school? I mean, I've heard some rumors that there may not even be any sports in the United States through 2021. That I've heard a rumor that the NFL won't start until after 2021. Same with college football. I've heard college football may start next March, a year from now, or 11 months from now.
Yeah, I've heard that. Right.
It's like, that's almost unfathomable. And we're talking about all this stimulus money, and I get it, and it's good. It's great to be able to give the money to people. But what I'm worried about most is the mental health of everybody in the United States. I mean, and first and foremost, athletes, students, young kids. I mean, they need their co-curricular activities. They need their involvement with their coaches and their teachers and extracurriculars. This is really tough. And if this goes on through the end of the year, boy, it's going to be a tough burden to cross.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
We're fortunate because we live next to my parents. My parents have 17 acres right in Waterbury Center. So we could go out for a hike or a run or just build a campfire. But it's been very difficult for people that enjoy being around people like myself, like you. Yeah. Let's back up a little bit. What is it about sports that led you to this path? And when you were in middle school, what was your favorite sport? What introduced you to sports?
Good question. I think competition in and of itself, playing the first game of Yahtzee, I wanted to win. So after that, I was in the punt, pass, and kick or when they do the punt, pass, and kick in the fall, as an 8, 9, and 10-year-old, and I got second place every year, by the way. So I didn't advance to the next level. So that was interesting. But anyways, competition drove me. Sports excited me. Baseball was my love. I fancy myself was being pretty good at baseball back in the day. Could hit really well. Had a little trouble throwing the ball from second to first, like Steve Sachs in high school. Had trouble with that for some reason, but it's funny, I could run fast. But baseball was my love. I transitioned to basketball. Believe it or not, I played hockey up until the end of 5th grade.
Oh.
And then in 6th grade, I started to play basketball, fell in love, and kind of went from there. Football, I played. I wasn't real good.
Hey, so talk to me a little bit as a dad. I'm fortunate that Tommy took my daughter on the varsity team this year, so I did not have to coach my own daughter. I know that you did coach Jade, and she had a great career with you. Could you talk about balancing coaching your daughter and fathering your daughter?
Well, I tell you what, it wasn't always easy. We tried to do whatever we could, and it didn't always happen. Once the game was over or practice was over, we tried to separate church and state, but it didn't always work that way. And if I had to go back, I'd do a lot of things differently. I certainly wouldn't be as hard on her as I was. I was very hard on my daughter, and I regret that. On the one hand, I regret it. On the other hand, I feel like it's built her for challenges that we're seeing today. Her 4.0 or better grade point average, she certainly has earned all by herself, but she's driven and she won't accept anything less than the best. And that's what I pushed in her. But I'll tell you what, when I went back into coaching this year, I realized how much, I just realized how much I missed her coming into the gym, Yeah. Because, I didn't coach the previous year, and, it was all over. She was a senior. I was done. That was a good time to transition out. And then this year getting back into it, when the kids started coming down from the classrooms into the gym, she didn't come in.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, man. I remember now how happy I was to see her smiling face. And she was always so bubbly as a player, very, she's got a good sense of humor like her dad, came into practice and was happy, so up until when I started screaming at her.
Hey, so I heard a coach say that you want your child to be the best player on the team or the worst player on the team. When they're in the middle, it makes it the most difficult to coach them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment. The thing is you can't really worry about what other people think if you're the coach. It's tough. We all have feelings, and I've heard them. I've heard the cries from the crowd or seen the Facebook messages that get posted, and you try to tell them as an athletic director they do no good. It's not constructive to the team to post this type of stuff, and it's not. but it doesn't mean it stops them. And we're all human. We all feel it. It's tough. What people don't understand, and I certainly I feel like I showed no bias. I care for all 12 or 13 players on the team, 1 through 13, equally the same. They all mean as much to me as supposed number 1 player or number 5 player. And a lot of people don't see it that way. But most people that are parents, they look and they're just looking at one kid, their own kid.
Yeah.
They're not looking at there's 5 people on the gym floor at the same time, and there's 7 waiting to play. And the coach is over there trying to figure out how they're going to get them all into the game, and it's a concern. And because you don't want to, you really like the so-called 12th player, you don't want to disappoint her or him either as a coach. But it's a balance. Varsity basketball coaching at that level, it's tough.
Now, talk to me for a moment, if you would, about Linden Institute's gymnasium. It's kind of a unique setup with all the fans, parents behind you. Can you hear parents chirping, or is that kind of removing the distraction so you can really focus on the game?
It's one of the better gyms to stay away from the parents. I have had some parents get real close to the railing and make sure they're heard. And that's whatever. Emotions play into it. It's fine. But, some of the gyms I don't like, and I really like what Harwood has done. Used to be Harwood had fans right behind the bench.
Yeah.
On the other side. And I hated that. Montpelier, your parents are right on top of you.
Right.
Randolph, you might as well all be in the same
floor,
for crying out loud. They might as well be drawing up the plays. Where's some other ones? Lamoille's, they're right there. I mean, literally this year, I was in the front row of Lamoille's bleachers, where you're supposed to sit, and there's a parent right behind me, like second row. Like, all right. So
it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
So just trying to get back to specifics regarding as a basketball coach, what are some things that you would like to hear about your players doing during this quarantine? Obviously, getting their homework done and being diligent in that manner. But sometimes people think, oh, it's the off season, I could take some time off. What are some basic things that you feel as a coach would improve players from this season to next?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you have to be very careful because you're out of season. The VPA is like, you're not telling them to do anything, right? No, but they've got their own hoops at home, and they can always be working on shooting form, which that repetition and muscle memory has to be done on a daily basis in my book if you're going to become a great shooter. But there's no way that you can't go out and dribble with your left hand or right hand, whatever your weak hand is. Find a rough spot on the driveway and dribble where it's rough. Don't dribble where it's smooth. Let the ball bounce around and get a feel for it. But get out there and do something. There's no reason you can't jump rope. It's hard though. I mean, these kids have been put in a real difficult situation, and as coaches, we're trying to motivate them, get them going. But yeah, there's not enough skill work that you can get. And in today's world, with all the body weight type exercises that you can do, you can get yourself in pretty good shape. And certainly with the internet, you could find a lot of techniques online that teach you how to do a lot of good things.
You certainly can, and I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't know if it will, but AAU, personally, I think is a necessary evil. When I was a kid, and I wasn't good, I thought I was a lot better than I was, but I was invited to play AAU. My parents saw the price. They said, go up to Johnson State, get your back end handed to you, and learn how to play. And that's what happened. Do you think it would be better for kids just to play against better competition? And what drives kids to seemingly play when there needs to be a scoreboard?
It's interesting. I think there always should be a scoreboard, first of all. You should always be winning by 2, counting by 1. I don't know, 3s might be worth 2, whatever. But there should be some form of competition. In fact, this year my plan is in the off season is to run a 3-on-3 program. So kids learn how to play basketball. I think 3-on-3 is good because and you set a certain number of parameters around it, only set a certain amount of ball screens, I get sick of ball screens, and the refs just want to call illegal screen anyways. So why set it? But anyways, neither here nor there. I like the idea of just play. Just keep playing as much as you can because you learn different scenarios. I mean, I watched a webinar this week with Gino Oriema. And boy, we've had a lot of time to watch webinars. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
A lot of those meetings, I've seen a lot of good ones, but Gino talking about, you're better off having them play. And AAU, I used to like AAU. And it's funny, you called it a necessary evil, Jeff. It isn't that a conundrum? It's tough. There's no AAU this spring, obviously. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of AAU anymore.
I hear that. Now I'll get you out on this. Eric Berry, making some time. Thanks again. NSNsports.net, you're the co-owner of that. For me, because you were gracious to come on, but I had a radio show, 7 years ago, and it was just so much fun to do. And so I thought during this quarantine, I'd kind of go back to those roots and try to do some sports interviews. What would you tell kids, parents, people that are just kind of bored or even a little depressed during this time to branch out and try new things or to develop those interests?
Well, if their interests are, or if their interests are in broadcast, put on a game and just try calling the game yourself and then rate yourself after the game. Something like that. There's plenty of YouTube videos you can get on, just put it on mute, call the game, something along those lines. I don't know. I think you got to try to keep busy. I'm building a treehouse right now with my son. He's getting credit for his woodworking class, and it's keeping me sane. And so I'm excited about that. It'll be a treehouse that I can go into during hunting season and just kind of mentally go to a different state and actually put a heater in it too. So keep busy.
For sure. Eric, hey, thanks so much for joining. It's always a pleasure, and wish you all the best and just wisdom with what's going to be coming down for this summer and obviously for next school year. But thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff. You're doing a great job, bud.
Hey, thanks so much. And again, that's Eric Berry. You can find more information about him online. This was on Facebook as well as YouTube. We'll post links as well. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JFullerInterviews. And we're going to have more interviews for you. Alex Wolf coming up tomorrow as well. You guys have a great week, everybody.